Ambassador Zethkar stood in stunned silence aboard the observation vessel, watching as the Harbinger transport ships lifted off from Kepler-7's surface. In the past 12 hours, everything he thought he knew about humans had been completely shattered. The tactical displays told an impossible story. 1,000 human soldiers had not only defeated 1,000 Harbinger warriors, they had done so while suffering fewer than 30 casualties. The Harbinger force had been reduced to less than 400 effective combat personnel, with the remainder either captured, wounded, or too demoralized to continue fighting. "I don't understand," whispered Ambassador Theises, her serpentine features pale with shock. The humans had inferior numbers, inferior technology, inferior physical capabilities. How is this possible? General Voxstar sat slumped in his chair, his usual boastful demeanor replaced by bewildered silence. He had spent centuries studying warfare across the galaxy, and nothing in his experience had prepared him for what they had just witnessed. "Request permission to establish communication with the human force," Zethkar said to the ship's captain, within minutes. The main screen displayed the face of a middle-aged human male wearing what appeared to be simple camouflage clothing. His insignia identified him as Lieutenant Colonel Bradley, commander of the human military unit. "Honored Council observers," Bradley said with crisp military formality. "I am Colonel Bradley, United States Marine Corps. I understand you wish to discuss the recent engagement." Zethkar leaned forward. "Colonel, we observed your forces achieve victory against opponents who should have held every conceivable advantage. Our military analysts are confused by this outcome." Bradley's expression remained neutral, but Zethkar caught a flicker of something in his eyes. Pride, perhaps, but also weariness. "Sir, with respect, your analysts may have focused on the wrong factors. Military effectiveness isn't just about individual strength or advanced weapons. It's about training, tactics, adaptability, and unit cohesion. But the Harbingers have been bred for warfare over thousands of generations," protested General Voxstar. "They are natural warriors with centuries of combat experience." "General, if I may," Bradley replied politely, "natural warriors and trained warriors are very different things. A predator that has never faced real danger often doesn't know how to react when it encounters prey that fights back effectively." Ambassador Theises activated her translator and addressed Bradley directly. "Colonel, we observed your forces using tactics that seem to deliberately avoid your technological advantages. Why would you choose to fight at such a disadvantage?" Bradley's mouth quirked slightly upward. "Ma'am, Marines don't fight at disadvantages. We turn apparent disadvantages into advantages. The Harbingers expected us to meet them with equal technology and superior numbers. Instead, we use mobility, stealth, and superior tactical training." "But your weapons," Voxstar interjected. "They appear primitive compared to Harbinger energy weapons." "General, a weapon is only as effective as the person using it. Our rifles may seem simple, but they're reliable, accurate, and designed by people who understand that the best technology is the technology that works when you need it most. Harbinger weapons are impressive until their power sources fail or their targeting systems are jammed." Zethkar found himself fascinated by the human's responses. There was no boasting, no false modesty, just matter-of-fact analysis of tactical decisions. "Colonel," Zethkar asked carefully, "what exactly are Marines?" "Our intelligence suggested they were simply another type of human soldier." For the first time, Bradley smiled genuinely. "Sir, Marines are warriors forged through adversity rather than born through genetic advantages. We take ordinary humans and put them through training designed to break them down and rebuild them as something harder. Every Marine has faced challenges that would stop most beings, and they've succeeded anyway." "What kind of challenges?" asked Theises. Bradley considered his answer. "Physical challenges that push human bodies beyond their normal limits. Mental challenges that teach problem-solving under extreme stress. Psychological challenges that forge unbreakable bonds between unit members. We don't just train them to fight. We train them to win regardless of circumstances." The transmission was interrupted by an incoming communication from War Prime, Scaroth aboard the departing Harbinger flagship. The alien leader's image appeared on a split screen, his usual arrogant demeanor replaced by grudging respect. "Human Commander," Scaroth said without preamble, "my tactical advisors inform me that your forces demonstrated capabilities not present in any intelligence reports. We concede this engagement and withdraw our claim to the disputed systems." Bradley nodded acknowledgement. "War Prime, your warriors fought with courage and skill. This victory reflects tactical preparation, not any lack of honor on your part." Scaroth's mandibles clicked in what might have been appreciation. "Tell me, Colonel, is this representative of human military capabilities throughout your space?" "Sir, the Marine Corps represents approximately 2% of United Earth's total military forces." The silence that followed this statement was profound. Zethkar felt his understanding of galactic power structures shifting fundamentally. If these humans represented only a tiny fraction of Earth's military capability, then every previous assessment of human civilization was completely wrong. 2%, repeated Scaroth slowly. "What are the other 98%? Bradley's expression remained carefully neutral. "The United States maintains Army, Navy, Air Force, and Space Force branches in addition to the Marine Corps. Other Earth nations maintain their own military organizations. Additionally, Earth's colonial militias have been training with Marine advisors for the past decade." Voxstar leaned forward urgently. "How many humans serve in your combined military forces?" "That information is classified, General. However, I can say that Earth takes the defense of human space very seriously. What you witnessed here was a small unit engagement. Earth is prepared for much larger conflicts if necessary." After the communication ended, the Council observers sat in shocked silence. Ambassador Thizes was the first to speak. "We need to completely reassess humanity's position in the galactic community. If their military capabilities are this advanced, they could potentially challenge any council member. More than that," said Zethkar thoughtfully, "they could potentially defend smaller species against aggressive expansion. Think about the implications." Over the following days, as the observation vessel returned to Council space, reports of the Kepler-7 engagement spread throughout the galactic community. The reaction was swift and dramatic. 3 minor species that had been under pressure from expansionist neighbors immediately requested human military advisors. The Kethmori Trade Federation quietly reached out to Earth about establishing mutual defense agreements. Most significantly, the Harbinger Collective announced a complete moratorium on territorial expansion pending strategic reassessment of galactic military capabilities. When Zethkar returned to the Council chambers a week later, he found the atmosphere completely transformed. The human delegation table, previously ignored or dismissed, was now surrounded by representatives seeking meetings and trade agreements. Ambassador Qin sat in the same chair as before, but her colleagues treated her with newfound respect. "The motion before the Council today," announced High Arbiter Gixalon, "concerns the application by the United Earth Government for admission to the Galactic Defense Planning Committee." This was unprecedented. The Defense Planning Committee had been restricted to the 5 most militarily powerful species in the galaxy. No new member had been admitted in over 3 centuries, Ambassador. Qin stood and addressed the assembly with confidence that hadn't been present in her previous appearances. "Honored Council members, Earth formally requests admission to the Defense Planning Committee based on demonstrated military capabilities and our desire to contribute to galactic security." General Voxstar, representing the Korath military states, rose from his seat. His species had held a permanent position on the Defense Committee for over 500 years. The Korath military states formally support Earth's admission to the Defense Planning Committee, he announced. "Recent events have demonstrated that human military capabilities represent a significant strategic asset to the galactic community." The vote was unanimous. After the session ended, Zethkar approached Ambassador Chun in the corridor outside the chambers. "Ambassador, I owe you an apology. We significantly underestimated your people." Chun smiled, but Zethkar noticed it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Thank you, Ambassador." Though I hope this teaches the Council an important lesson about making assumptions based on appearance. Indeed. But I'm curious about something. During our first meeting about this crisis, you looked ... not afraid but disappointed. Why? Chen was quiet for a moment before answering. Ambassador, when the Harbinger Collective challenged us to combat, I knew what the outcome would be. I was sad because I knew that after this engagement, the galaxy would see humans very differently. We've worked hard to be seen as peaceful traders and diplomats rather than warriors. And now? Now everyone knows that humans can fight when necessary. I hope we can maintain the balance between being respected and being feared. Zethkar nodded slowly. Mac. Staff Sergeant Maria Rodriguez pressed herself against the rough bark of an alien tree and checked her watch. 347 hours local time. Perfect. The Harbingers would be at their lowest alert level, confident in their technological superiority and defensive positions. 3 days ago, she had been conducting training exercises on Earth's moon when the emergency deployment order came through. The entire 1st Marine Expeditionary Unit received 48 hours to prepare for an engagement against hostile alien forces in defense of American citizens. Rodriguez had been skeptical. After 20 years in the Corps, she had heard plenty of wild briefings that turned out to be exaggerated. But when they showed her footage of the 9-foot-tall armored aliens with energy weapons, she realized this wasn't another training scenario. Now, crouched in an alien forest on a planet 50 light-years from Earth, she was about to find out if 2 decades of Marine training would work against beings that could tear her apart with their bare hands. Go 6. This is Reaper 2, whispered a voice in her earpiece. Corporal Johnson was positioned on the ridgeline 800 meters to her north. Tango Patrol moving through Sector 4. 3 hostiles, heavy armor, energy rifles. They're following the river path like we predicted. Rodriguez smiled grimly. The aliens were good soldiers, but they thought like civilized beings. They used roads, followed logical routes, and maintained proper formation discipline. Unfortunately for them, Marines had spent the last 2 centuries learning how to fight enemies with superior technology and numbers. Copy that, Reaper 2. All units, prepare for simultaneous engagement. Remember, we need their equipment intact for intel. Aim for joint areas where the armor connections are. Weakest? Rodriguez had studied the Harbinger equipment during the journey to Kepler 7. Their powered armor was impressive, but had design flaws typical of beings who relied too heavily on technology. The joints needed flexibility, which meant vulnerable points. The energy shields were powerful, but had limited battery life and specific frequency vulnerabilities. Most importantly, the Harbingers thought like conquerors, not guerrillas. They expected enemies to meet them in open battle where superior firepower could win quickly. They weren't prepared for an enemy that treated their own apparent disadvantages as tactical assets. The alien patrol came into view through Rodriguez's night vision scope. 3 massive figures in gleaming armor, moving confidently through the forest with their energy weapons at ready. Their thermal signatures blazed like torches in her enhanced vision, and their electromagnetic fields lit up like Christmas trees on her equipment scanners. Reaper 2, you have the left target. Devil Dog 3, take the right. I've got center, Rodriguez whispered into her comm. Roger that, Ghost 6, the Devil Dog 3 confirms. Rodriguez steadied her breathing and sighted through her rifle's scope. The weapon was a heavily modified M27 infantry automatic rifle, upgraded with armor-piercing rounds specifically designed after analysis of Harbinger technology. The ammunition would punch through the armor joints, and the rifle itself was coated with materials that wouldn't register on alien sensors. The Harbinger stopped suddenly. The center alien raised one hand, and Rodriguez could see him scanning the area with some kind of detection equipment. For a moment, she wondered if they had been spotted. Then the alien relaxed and gestured for his companions to continue forward. That was their mistake. They had scanned for energy signatures, metal content, and thermal readings. But Marines had learned decades ago how to hide from technological detection. They used natural materials, controlled their body heat, and most importantly, They understood patience. "Execute," Rodriguez whispered. 3 rifle shots cracked almost simultaneously through the forest. The specially designed armor-piercing rounds struck their targets, precisely at the neck joints where the helmet connected to the body armor. The aliens' energy shields flared briefly, but couldn't protect the small gaps necessary for mobility. All 3 harbingers collapsed instantly. "Targets down," reported Johnson. "Clean kills." Moving to secure equipment, Rodriguez emerged from cover and approached the fallen aliens. Up close, they were even more impressive than in the briefings. Massive, powerfully built beings whose natural strength probably exceeded human capabilities by a factor of 5 or more. But strength meant nothing if you couldn't bring it to bear. As her team secured the alien weapons and armor, Rodriguez's come crackled with reports from other Marine units across the continent. "Ghost 6, this is Phantom 1. Eliminated alien patrol in Sector 12. Captured intact energy shields and communication equipment. Devil Dog 7 to all units. Neutralized enemy observation post on Hill 247. Alien surveillance network has a blind spot in the southern approach to their base. Reaper 4 reporting. Ambushed alien supply convoy in Canyon Pass. Destroyed 6 vehicles, captured weapons and ammunition. No friendly casualties." Rodriguez allowed herself a small smile. The aliens had made their first critical error by splitting their forces to hunt scattered humans. Now they were learning why that was a mistake. Her comm unit buzzed with an encrypted message from Lieutenant Colonel Bradley, the mission commander. "All Ghost units, converge on Rally Point Alpha for Phase 2 operations. Intelligence gathering complete. Time to apply pressure." Rodriguez and her team melted back into the forest, leaving only empty armor where 3 Harbinger warriors had been. Behind them, the alien equipment had been stripped of useful components, and the bodies were arranged to suggest an attack by local wildlife rather than human military action. 6 hours later, Rodriguez found herself crouched in a concealed position overlooking the main Harbinger encampment. Around her, 98 other Marines waited in silence. The past week had reduced the alien force from 1,000 to approximately 600, and their confident patrols had been replaced by nervous, defensive positions. "Listen up, Marines," whispered Lieutenant Colonel Bradley through the comm network. "Intelligence analysis shows the aliens are preparing to call for reinforcements. We need to end this engagement before more hostiles arrive." Rodriguez studied the enemy base through her scope. It was an impressive fortification with energy barriers, automated defense turrets, and clear fields of fire in all directions. A direct assault would be suicide, which was exactly why the aliens expected any attack to come from the obvious approaches. "The enemy has superior individual strength, better armor, and more advanced weapons," continued Bradley. "But they have 3 critical weaknesses. First, they rely too heavily on their technology and haven't adapted to equipment failures. Second, they don't understand asymmetric warfare. And third, they've never fought an enemy that uses their own advantages against them." The plan Bradley outlined was audacious even by Marine standards. Instead of attacking the base's defenses, they would turn those defenses into weapons against their creators. 3. Teams of combat engineers would infiltrate the alien power distribution systems and plant electromagnetic pulse charges, designed to overload the energy shields and automated weapons. A 4th team would hack into the alien communication network and feed false information to create confusion. Meanwhile, the majority of Marines would create multiple diversionary attacks to draw defenders away from critical positions. "Remember," Bradley concluded, "we're not trying to kill every alien. We're trying to demonstrate that their invasion of human space will cost more than they're willing to pay. Make them decide that fighting humans is more trouble than it's worth." Rodriguez moved out with her assigned team toward the base's northern perimeter. The terrain here was rocky and broken, offering excellent concealment but requiring careful movement to avoid detection. As they approached the outer defense line, she could see Harbinger sentries positioned on elevated platforms with overlapping fields of fire. The aliens had learned from their early losses and were now maintaining proper security protocols. But they were still thinking like conventional soldiers facing conventional threats. Corporal Henderson, the team's electronics specialist, was already at work on the alien power grid. Marine intelligence had identified the frequency patterns used in Harbinger technology, and Henderson carried devices specifically designed to exploit those vulnerabilities. Ghost 6? This is Wrench, Henderson whispered, using his call sign. I'm reading massive power fluctuations in their primary grid. These ampere charges are going to do more damage than we calculated. Their whole system is interconnected. Rodriguez nodded. The aliens' advanced technology was also their weakness. Everything in their base was linked together for maximum efficiency, which meant that damaging one system would cascade through their entire network. Execute on my mark, came Bradley's voice over the comm. 3.2.1. Mark. The night exploded into chaos. Henderson's charges detonated throughout the alien power grid, sending electromagnetic pulses cascading through their systems. Energy shields flickered and died. Automated weapons turrets sparked and went silent. Emergency lighting bathed the base in red illumination as primary systems failed. Simultaneously, Marine teams launched diversionary attacks from 6 different directions. Rocket-propelled grenades struck defensive positions that were no longer protected by energy barriers. Sniper fire eliminated sentries who were silhouetted against the emergen. The massive crystal chamber hummed with the voices of 1,000 different species. Ambassador Zethkar of the Vraxian Empire adjusted his ceremonial robes and looked down at the small pale creature sitting at the human delegation table. The being was so unremarkable that Zethkar almost forgot it was there. The motion before the council today, announced High Arbiter Gixelon, his 6 arms gesturing dramatically, concerns the territorial dispute in the Kepler sector. The Harbinger Collective claims the humans have illegally occupied 3 star systems. Zethkar's mandibles clicked in amusement. The humans had been part of the Galactic Council for only 50 standard years, barely a blink of time compared to his own empire's 1,000-year membership. They were soft, weak creatures who had somehow stumbled into, faster than light travel through what most considered a technological fluke. The human ambassador, a middle-aged female named Sarah Chun, stood slowly. Her movements were careful, almost timid. "Honored council members," she began, her voice barely carrying across the vast chamber. "These systems were legally purchased from the Kethmori Trade Federation according to standard galactic commerce law." A rumble of laughter echoed through the chamber. The Harbinger Collective's representative, War Prime Scaroth, rose to his full 9-foot height. His black carapace gleamed under the chamber's lights, and his razor-sharp claws scraped against the podium as he gripped it. "Legal?" Scaroth's voice boomed like thunder. "These softshells speak of legal when they lack the strength to hold what they claim to own. The Harbinger Collective has decided these systems would serve our expansion needs better. We challenge the humans to combat trials to settle this matter properly." Shun's face paled further, if such a thing was possible. "The United Earth government requests time to consider this challenge." More laughter filled the chamber. Zethkar exchanged glances with Ambassador Theises of the Serpentine Dominion. Everyone knew what this meant. The humans would eventually surrender the systems rather than face the Harbinger Collective in battle. It was the sensible choice for such a weak species. "Cowardice," muttered General Voxstar of the Korath Military States, loud enough for the nearby delegates to hear. "Typical human behavior. They fear battle like younglings fear the dark." High Arbiter Gixelon's central eye focused on Chung. The Council grants the human delegation 7 standard days to respond to this challenge. If no response is given, or if the challenge is declined, the systems will be transferred to the Harbinger Collective by default. Chun nodded stiffly and gathered her data tablets. As she walked past Zethkar's section, he noticed something strange in her eyes. It wasn't fear as he expected. It looked almost like sadness? Perhaps disappointment? Odd emotional responses for someone about to lose 3 entire star systems. After the session ended, Zethkar found himself in the Council's exclusive dining hall with several other senior ambassadors. The conversation naturally turned to the human situation. "I almost feel sorry for them," said Ambassador Theises. Her serpentine features twisted into what passed for sympathy among her people. "They've worked so hard to build those colonies. 5 million humans live in those systems now. 5 million softshells who will need to find new homes," laughed General Voxstar. "Unless the Harbingers decide to keep them as slaves. They do need manual labor for their mining operations." Zethkar sipped his fermented plant extract thoughtfully. "Has anyone actually studied human military capabilities? I mean, beyond the basic intelligence reports?" Theises waved a dismissive hand. "What's to study? They have no natural weapons, no armor, no enhanced strength or speed. Their technology is adequate but unimpressive. They've never won a significant military engagement against any council species. That's because they've never had a significant military engagement," pointed out Ambassador Quen of the Philosian Republic. "They've always negotiated or retreated when challenged." "Exactly my point," said Voxstar. "Warriors are forged in battle. These humans have no battle experience worth mentioning." Zethkar nodded absently, but something nagged at him. During his diplomatic training, he had learned to read body language and behavioral cues from hundreds of different species. Ambassador Qian's reaction had been ... wrong. She should have shown fear, panic, or desperate pleading. Instead, she had looked like someone who had just received very disappointing news about people she cared about. 3 days later, Zethkar was reviewing trade agreements in his office when his communications array chimed with an urgent priority message. The seal of the Human United Earth Government appeared on his screen, followed by Ambassador Chun's image. "Honored delegates of the Galactic Council," Chun began, her voice now carrying a strange formality that hadn't been present before. "The United Earth Government has considered the Harbinger Collective's challenge regarding the Kepler sector systems. We accept." Zethkar's 4 eyes widened in surprise. "This was unexpected," Chun continued. "However, we invoke the right of representative combat as outlined in Section 1247 of the Galactic War Codes. We request that this dispute be settled by limited engagement between representative forces, rather than full-scale warfare. We propose that each side commit no more than 1,000 combat personnel to determine the outcome." The transmission ended, leaving Zethkar staring at a blank screen. The right of representative combat was an ancient provision rarely used in modern times. It was designed to settle territorial disputes without massive loss of life or resources. But it required both sides to agree to the limitations within hours. War Prime Scaroth had accepted the human proposal with obvious glee. 1,000 Harbinger warriors against 1,000 humans. It would be a massacre so swift and decisive that it would serve as a warning to any other weak species that might consider challenging Harbinger. Expansion. The engagement was scheduled for the following week on Kepler 7, the largest of the disputed worlds. Representatives from major council species would observe to ensure fair combat. As Zethkar prepared for the journey to Kepler 7, he found himself increasingly curious about what the humans were thinking. Their military databases listed various human fighting forces, armies, navies, air forces, and something called Marines. The records were sparse, mostly focused on human conflicts with each other rather than alien species. One entry caught his attention. United States Marine Corps, elite amphibious assault force specializing in rapid deployment and close-quarters combat. The description was brief and unremarkable, but there was a note about their motto, Semper Fidelis, always faithful. Zethkar had studied many warrior cultures during his centuries of diplomatic service. Mottos often revealed important cultural values. Always faithful suggested strong unit cohesion and loyalty. Interesting, but probably irrelevant against Harbinger warriors who had been bred for combat over thousands of generations. The journey to Kepler 7 took 3 days. Zethkar traveled aboard the neutral observation vessel Star of Diplomacy, along with representatives from 12 other council species. During the voyage, conversations centered on predictions about the coming battle. I heard the humans are sending something called Marines, mentioned Ambassador Theises during dinner. Anyone know what makes them different from regular human soldiers? Probably nothing significant, replied General Voxstar. Humans lack the biological advantages necessary for effective warfare. No claws, no armor, no poison, no enhanced strength. Their technology is adequate but not superior to Harbinger equipment. Ambassador Quen looked up from his meal. The intelligence reports mention that these Marines have some unusual training methods. Something about forging warriors through extreme hardship rather than genetic enhancement. Primitive, scoffed Voxstar. Proper warriors are born, not made through suffering. Zethkar remained silent, but his curiosity continued to grow. He had requested detailed files on human military history, which would be available once they reached Kepler 7. Something about this situation felt wrong to his experienced diplomatic instincts. When they arrived at Kepler 7, the observation ship took position in high orbit above the designated combat zone, a large island continent with diverse terrain including forests, mountains, and urban areas. The human colonists had been evacuated, leaving behind empty cities and infrastructure. The Harbinger force had already landed and established a fortified base camp in the island's central plains. 1,000 of their finest warriors, equipped with personal energy shields, plasma weapons, and powered armor. From orbit, their camp looked like a military masterpiece, perfectly organized, heavily defended, with clear sight lines in all directions. "Where are the humans?" asked Ambassador Theises, studying the orbital displays. "Shouldn't they have landed by now?" Zethkar checked his chronometer. The humans were supposed to have arrived 6 hours ago. Had they changed their minds at the last moment? It wouldn't be entirely surprising. "Wait," said the ship's sensor operator, a young Keleth with exceptional eyesight. "I'm detecting multiple small craft entering the atmosphere." "Very small." They're coming in from different vectors, and they're not heading for the main landing zones." On the main display screen, tiny blips appeared scattered across the hemisphere. Instead of landing together like a proper military force, the humans seemed to be dispersing to dozens of different,